Next on our panel, we have Dr. Donna Hicks. Dr. Hicks is an associate at the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs here at Harvard University. She's taught courses in conflict resolution at Harvard, Clark, and Columbia universities, and conducted trainings and educational seminars in the US and abroad on the role that dignity plays in healing and reconciling relationships in conflict. She's facilitated dialogue between communities in conflict all over the world, and has also worked as a consultant to corporations and organizations applying the dignity model. So not only widely traveled, but also widely published, Dr. Hicks is the author of the best-selling book, Dignity, and the essential roles it plays in resolving conflict, published by Yale University Press. And Dr. Hicks, following on Dr. Guillen's comments, what role specifically can dignity play in creating an environment of trust and responsibility in the workplace?
Yes, that's a question. Thank you, Bill, and also Manuel. If it weren't for Manuel, we wouldn't be here today. So he's being very self-effacing in terms of how much of him is here with us today. So I'm most grateful once again. And it's great to meet Sandra and to see Tomas again. And yes, so what is the role dignity plays? Last year I spent more time talking about the fact that I discovered the importance of this concept of dignity through all my work in international conflict. And as Bill said, I've done a lot of work in international conflict, and I found that, for me, which was a missing link in my understanding of conflict, and that is, what is this human dimension? You know, what happens to human beings in these conflicts that isn't about the objective political issues? Because it's those objective political issues that always get put to the table. But we never talk about, what does it mean to be treated as if you don't matter? What does it feel like to be treated as if you're a second-class citizen, where you're marginalized, So I was interested in that dimension. That was really important to me. And then, as Bill said, I ended up spending about 7 years of my life trying to write about it, because there was nothing written at the time. This concept of dignity wasn't operationalized. It wasn't played out in the way that we could understand it in terms of what is this going to look like in my everyday life if I treat people with dignity? How is that going to improve our relationships? So those are the kind of questions that I was interested in. And I very quickly discovered that this issue of dignity wasn't just about international politics. This is about what it means to be a human being. Because every single one of us, and what I found in my research is that no matter where in the world I go to and do interviews with people about dignity, we all want the same thing. Every last one of us. It's a universal human yearning. And I think, frankly, it's our highest common denominator. And I think dignity, I think dignity is the thing that could unite us. We have all kinds of differences, right? We're all from different cultures, from different this and different that. But at the end of the day, the thing that can bring us all together again, I feel, is a mutual honoring of each other's dignity. Knowing when I look at you, I know you want what I want. You want to be treated in a way that honors your identity, in a way that acknowledges who you are, in a way that recognizes your unique qualities in a way of life, in a way where you're treated fairly, in a way where you're included in things. Anyway, these are just a few of the ways we can have our dignity honored. But so as I said, it quickly came to me that this isn't just about international politics. I was invited to work in the corporate world. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you how exactly the same dynamics took place in the corporate world as in international politics. I'll tell you that in a minute. But I want to first be sure that we're all on the same page about what I mean by dignity. And it's a very simple concept, because what I realized is that dignity isn't an intellectual issue. I spent years, I got PhD trying to understand this stuff, but I didn't need it. Because at the end of the day, dignity is a very simple thing. It's as I said, it's our yearning and our deep desire to be treated as if we're something of value and treated as if we're worthy. So it's our inherent worthiness, our inherent sense of value. And if you have any trouble believing this, bring an image in your mind of a baby, an infant newborn baby. You look at this beautiful little thing, this creature, this precious child, is there any doubt in your mind that that child has value and worth? Any doubt whatsoever? And then you see another thing when you look at these infant babies. You see, not only are they valuable, because frankly, okay, I go even a step further. I say they're not just valuable and worthy, I say they're invaluable. They're priceless and irreplaceable. And at the same time, they are vulnerable, all right? You get that baby picture in your mind? They're physically vulnerable. They need us for everything, taking care of all of their physical needs, but they also need to have their dignity taken care of. From that very young age, we all of us, we need it. And we are just as vulnerable to a wound to our dignity as we are to a physical wound. And there's research now out of UCLA that is showing that, we have this wonderful brain scanning capacity now in the functional magnetic resonance imaging technology. They show, these researchers, neuroscientists, showed that a wound to our dignity shows up in the brain in exactly the same area as a physical wound. So that was all I needed. That was all I needed to take this stuff on the road and say, look, you've got to pay attention to this. This is important, this dignity stuff. You can't just say anymore, oh, it's just touchy-feely, right? Dismiss it as if it's not important. We can't do that anymore. And the evidence is there. The hard science is there that says our brain doesn't know the difference when you're injured, when you're feeling humiliated versus when you're feeling like you have your arm broken or some physical injury. So anyway, I don't want to go into that too much, but here's what I want to add, and I don't know, we have to maybe discuss this, because I think dignity and respect are two different things. Dignity is our birthright. We all deserve to be treated with dignity, each and every one of us. And even if we do bad things, even if we do bad things, we have to be held accountable for our bad behavior. But at the end of the day, we're all valuable and vulnerable human beings. And we deserve to be treated as if we are something that's invaluable, priceless, and irreplaceable. Now, respect, on the other hand, I think respect needs to be earned. And in my business, we have people clamoring all the time in conflict world saying, I demand respect. Well, you can't demand respect. You have to do something in order to gain my respect. But dignity, you don't have to do a darn thing. Dignity is part of what it means to be a human being, and we all deserve to be treated that way. So I went into the corporate world, and lo and behold, what I discovered is that there were violations of dignity everywhere I turned. And when I went in and I started talking to people, I did several interviews before I did any kind of intervention just to get the lay of the land. What's going on here? Well, as I said, found out that people, employees, now this isn't in every organization, but in the ones that I actually worked in, they felt didn't feel cared for. They didn't feel valued. They felt as if they were being used in order to gain whatever the business plan was in the organization. And at the end of the day, there was absolutely no trust, because they couldn't trust that the leadership was actually concerned about them, that they cared about the impact that their policies had. And I looked at dignity in two levels, and one at the interpersonal level, the way the leadership treated their employees, but also I looked at systemic level of indignities, which were the policies that the people created that had no consciousness about the effect that it would have on the employees. So I was working on two planes, one at that systemic level where I was trying to develop policy where people felt, were mindful of the fact that their dignity mattered in these circumstances. So, back to the people again. So what did they feel? They felt like they were just putting in their time, right? They were getting a paycheck. They felt resentful of the way, resentment was everywhere. They felt resentful. And I said, well, why don't you speak up? Why don't you speak up to your boss and say, look, this was hurtful to me when you did X, Y, or Z. And I remember this one woman looked at me and she said, Donna, are you nuts? That would be career suicide. If I spoke up to my boss, are you kidding? I wouldn't have a job, especially in this economy. This was back in the past 3 or 4 years. And they said, not only am I afraid of losing my job, but I might not get that promotion. You know, they had all these reviews all the time. So to say the least, there was no trust there. And when there's no trust, you know, unfortunately what happens, people don't feel like extending themselves. People don't feel like giving of their discretionary energy. They don't feel loyal. They feel like they got a job, they get a paycheck, that's it. They won't go that extra mile. And they're distracted. This is really fundamental. They're distracted by their own resentment, right, of not being treated well. So they can't even be creative. And so this is, you know, what I tried to do with them is to go into and work with the leadership teams and say, look, this dignity stuff matters, right? This dignity stuff really matters. And let me just say a couple of things about what I think a dignity leader, a person who wants to lead with dignity, has to know and has to embody and has to play out. First of all, they have to know how inherently valuable and vulnerable all human beings are. And vulnerability is the key that I think is even more important here, because, you know, oftentimes leaders will do things and not know the impact that it has. By the way, let me just say this, because I was telling Bill about this earlier. These are not bad leaders. These are not bad men and women who are out to get their employees. It has nothing to do with that. It is just simply they don't know. They don't understand the impact of their, you know, rude behaviors on their employees. They're not bad people. They're just people who are not aware of dignity and the importance of it in your relationships. So what are the 10 ways? They need to know how to honor dignity. They need to know that everybody wants their identity accepted, no matter who they are. They want recognition of their unique qualities and way of life. They want acknowledgement. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be responded to. They want to belong. More than anything else, people who are cared for get this tremendous sense of belonging. And man, are there payoffs for that one, when people feel like they're part of a family where they're being taken care of. Freedom and independence. People don't like to be micromanaged in the workplace. They like to be able to be a part of the decisions that affect their lives. They want safety. They want to feel safe. And in what I mean by safety here, it's not so much physical safety, but they want to be safe to be able to speak out when something bad is happening in their environment. And if you don't give people that opportunity to feel secure about saying, hey, look, you know, you may not be aware of it, boss, but when you did that, it had a terrible effect on many of the people here. We need to be able to have that conversation in the workplace. And people want to be given the benefit of the doubt. They don't want to be looked at as suspicious all the time. We want to be understood. Certainly we want to be treated fairly. And finally, we want an apology when the boss does something wrong, or when the company does something wrong that violates the employee's dignity. If they want to say, gee, you know, I'm sorry, I made a mistake here, that's what employees want to hear. And just, how am I doing there, Tomas?
Yeah.
How many minutes?
10 minutes. Okay.
I have 10 minutes? No, I can't. I only have.
Keep going.
Okay, I just want to wrap it up here by saying there are a few other things. Poor Tomas was going to tell me. They have that leaders also, in addition to knowing how to honor dignity, they need to know the power they have over others. Because oftentimes leaders are not even aware of the power that they have to set the tone in their organization. And it's a wonderful sense of power. And the question is, how do you use that power to honor people's dignity, to make people feel seen, make people feel heard, right? How do we use that power to do that rather than to make them feel insignificant? And leaders need to know the effect that violations of dignity have on people. If they're not aware that treating people badly affects profits and affects not only just the climate and the environment, but it literally affects profits. And our friend here, Bill, isn't it? Yeah, he's got the data to back me up here, and I've got others as well, but other data as well. But it's really clear. Bill and I had a conversation earlier. It is astonishing how much not only is this increased profits by treating people well, but how it decreases, what would you say, what's the word?
Just increases the value of the culture.
It just increases the value of the culture, thanks. All right, so the other thing is that we have to know what our own vulnerabilities are as leaders, right? Because all of us has blind spots, every single one of us, we have blind spots. And usually when we violate other people, it's because we're operating from a blind spot, not because we're bad people, right? This has been my big challenge here, to have people help me see my blind spots. And I think all leaders need to be able to open up to that possibility that, gee, maybe you're doing something that's having a negative effect on others. And also just knowing how powerfully people react. You know, our self-preservation instincts are so deep that when somebody violates our dignity, we want revenge, right? We want to get back at that boss. We want to get even. And what happens is, even if you can't say it to people, to the boss, it goes into the underground network. The gossip starts, and everybody knows how bad a boss that you've got, right? All right. So finally, one last thing here about honoring dignity and creating a culture of dignity. And I think we can add this somehow, Manuel, that I personally feel that doing this dignity work in the workplace, and as you said, everywhere in your entire life, it is really spiritual practice. Because you're trying to figure out, how can I bring out the best in the people with whom I work? How do I bring out the best in the people in my family, in my culture, in my environment? And honestly, the best way of bringing out the best in people is by honoring their dignity. And here's the bonus here. When you honor other people's dignity, you not only make them feel good, but you look good too. So you strengthen your own dignity when you see the other as something of value and worth, or something that's invaluable, priceless, and irreplaceable. So for me, it's spiritual practice every single day. And frankly, I mess up a lot, let me tell you. It's not an easy thing to do this, because we're fighting our own internal battles about our own worthiness. So this is really a big, big challenge. I'm putting it out here, and it sounds like common sense, but to put it into practice, let me say it takes work. But it is the most rewarding work. There's joy on the other side of this. Once you get this and you do it as a way of life, it's a joyful life. And everybody else feels your joy, so. All right, I better stop and sound like I'm preaching here.
Dr.